taking a close look at what's around us, there is some sort of a harmony. It is the harmony of overwhelming and collective murder.
Hi and welcome to another thrift flip. I would say I'm cheating a little bit in this one because what I thrifted is actually curtains. So I wouldn't say that I'm actually flipping anything because it's more or less fabric just. But it is secondhand material, which is very nice to work with when you get the chance to. In this video I'm not gonna go in depth how I do the front pockets and the fly, because then this video would be a million years. Also, it was a little bit stressful to make the fly in velvet because you cannot stitch it multiple times and seam rip it because it will show. So I tried to keep the concentration, and that made me not film it. If I remember, I will link some videos down below of how to make the fly and how to make the front pockets. So you can just go on and watch those first and then come back to this if you're interested in how to make cargo pants. But yeah, I'm just attaching the front pockets in the top with a seam just so they don't shift around when you add the lining and such. And then I'm overlocking the side seams to prepare for the next step. I like to overlock them separately and then stitch them together so you can open up the seam and press it. That way it will lay more flat when you attach the cargo pocket, which is already pretty bulky. I've been experimenting a little bit about how to make the opening of the front pockets less bulging, and you can see on suit pants that they have this detail of this extended part of the fabric of the pocket, and it's attached to the fly to make it not bulge. So I'm attaching it on the same seam as where I attached the fly on one side. And on the other side you just have to be creative where you attach it, or maybe hand stitch it in place because it's a little bit difficult. So here you can see that the opening is bulging and also the seam. And on the side where I already attached it, it's straight and there's less bulge of the opening of the pocket. And here you can see more clearly that there is some excess fabric. I just extended it more than I needed, just to be able to have enough and not run short, because I didn't know where it was gonna hit the fly to be attached. Then we move on to the cargo pockets, which I hope people are here for, because it's gonna be a lot of that. And I cut out the fabric pieces, do some notches, and then fold it inwards accordingly to the notches and stitch it in place so it won't unfold when I do the next step. Then I move over to the pocket lid, and I'm doing one part of it in the lining fabric and one in the velvet just to reduce the bulkiness. And I stitch it all the way around and clip the corners to turn it inside out. And then I prepare it to be top stitched. I like to pin it just so it won't shift around too much. I top stitch it around 5 millimeters from the edge, and when you come to a corner you just leave the needle in and you pivot. Then I went ahead and measured around the pocket to cut out some side panels and attach, and I think I made mine around 5 centimeters wide, and I finished off one edge with overlock and the other one I folded inwards and stitched in place. This one was already done because I used the side of the curtains, but you should do something similarly if you just have plain fabric. and then I stitch it all along the sides and the bottom of the pocket to give it some depth. And instead of pinning it, I just line up the edges and pivot around the corners and do a few stitches at a time. I finish up the upper edge, fold it downwards, press it in place and stitch it down with a top stitch. And this is Donut. Say hi everyone. I'm looking after a friend of mine's cat when they're away, and she's such a snuggly little cat. So here I'm taking the side panel and folding it in the middle and pinning it in place. And this is to be able to attach it better and make it the right size. So I'm just marking the height on the side seam of the pants and aligning the center of the pocket with the side seam. Then I'm pinning it in place and pinning alongside the side panel. Then I stitch it similarly to how you attach the panel to the pocket. You let the needle stay in and then you pivot. We move on to the pocket lid, and you start with attaching it around 1 centimeters from the upper edge of the pocket, and you stitch it down 5 millimeters from the edge. So then you have the space to turn it over itself or fold it over itself, and then you stitch with 1 centimeters from the upper edge to encapsulate that raw edge so it won't fray. This next thing is a little bit difficult to explain, so I'll show you here first that I'm doing a stitch on the inside of the panel, like folding it in half and stitching it on the upper side to make it not bulging out in the top of the pocket. So I'm folding it in half, as you can see here, and then stitching it parallel to the panel as close to the pant leg as possible. I'm just doing a few stitches up and down to secure it, and this will keep the opening a little bit more closed so it doesn't gape. When the cargo pockets are done, I'm finishing off the crotch seam with an overlock and stitching the crotch together, the back crotch seam. And then we can finally try them on. And these fit pretty good because I already made something with this same pattern. But if you have any fit issues, it's now that you will fix that. If you take in the side seams, you can take in the back seams, or you can make the darts bigger or smaller if need be. So now we're moving on to the waistband. And I didn't have enough fabric to make it in one long strip, so I'm just stitching it up in the center back and top stitching it down to reduce the bulk. I'm cleaning up the edge a little bit before attaching the waistband, and I'm starting in the center back and pinning alongside to the front on both sides. I'm removing any excess fabric, I just need 1 centimeters for the seam allowance in the center front on each side of the fly. And I like to stitch the waistband with one side folded up a little bit because it makes it easier when you turn it around, but you don't have to do this. Then you go ahead and stitch all around with 1 centimeter seam allowance. And I should probably have done this before, but I decided to not fold the other side of the waistband inwards because it would be too bulky with this thick fabric. So if you also have a thicker fabric like velvet or something else, you could also just finish off the edge and leave it flat on the inside. So I'm clipping the corners of the waistband and I'm turning it inside out and I'm pressing it flat. Then I'm making sure that it is the same width as it is in the front all the way around, and I'm pressing it in place and pinning it. Then I'm doing something that's called stitch in the ditch, and you're just stitching right where the seam line already is, and you're pushing, or like you're kind of pulling the fabrics apart, and when they then bulge up again, the seam will be not visible, ideally, if you do it accurately. Then I'm finishing off the leg holes with an overlock seam, and it's time for the zippers. So as you can see, I've already attached the zipper on one leg and I'm just matching it up on the other leg, and I chose to have the zipper pull on the inside of the leg, but I don't think it actually matters, just that they are attached with the same side. So preferably when they're separated, the zipper pull will be on the down part, but I've done the opposite. Just to reduce bulk when you're wearing them as shorts. But yeah, as long as you do it the same on both, I think you'll be fine. And I took a zipper that is slightly longer than the circumference of the leg, just to make them overlap a little bit, but you can also have them meet exactly. And here I'm stitching down the one end of the zipper first and then putting the other one on top and stitching it down just to make sure they are flat and there's no bubble created. Then I wanted to make some zipper protection because it's not so comfortable to have the zipper against your skin. So I'm just cutting these strips of fabric out from the lining fabric, stitching them to a loop, then folding them over and finishing off the edge with an overlock seam. I'm attaching it on top of the zipper and stitching it in place. Then I'm folding all of this upwards. Make sure that the zipper protection is not showing over the edge. So I have it like 1 centimeter above the edge, and pressing it in place and pinning it. And now, just because this becomes quite bulky with all the layers, I'm using a basting stitch all the way around so I can remove the pins and that the fabrics won't shift when I sew. it time for a small kitty petting break? Obviously you can't be working all the time, right? Then I do a top stitch from the right side, and I use this small tape, piece of tape on the side there to make sure that the distance is the same from the edge everywhere. And now we're moving on to the lower part of the pants. Welcome! I'm happy if you made it this far. I'm cutting out some rectangles, which is like the lower part of the pant, and make sure you have seam allowance both on the bottom of your shorts and on the top of the lower part, because you will need a bit more when you attach the zipper and such. And then there's time for more pockets, and here I'm showing more closely how to fold the pockets with the notches. So on each notch I'm folding it and pinning it, and then I'm putting them flat on top of each other and pinning that in place. And I'm doing it inwards. You can do it outwards too if you prefer that. It's just a taste thing. And now you will see how I make the rest of the pockets in ultra speed. We did them a little bit too fast, so sometimes stuff goes wrong, but that can be fixed. Doing great. Stitch it on the wrong side. Maybe I'm a little bit too tired. I have to seam rip this. Here I'm making a strap, so one side is the lining fabric and one side is the velvet, and I think it is about 3 centimeters wide, so it was 5 centimeters before I stitched it up. And I just added this as a detail. You don't have to, but I liked to have like this buckle that connected the lower part with the upper part. So here I'm just pinning it in place and trying to figure out how long the different parts of the strap needs to be. So I have this short part to attach the buckle to the upper part, and a longer strap for the lower part, so it can dangle a little bit. And then I'm just using a zigzag stitch to attach it together and make sure it doesn't fray. Also, it's easier when you stitch it on so it doesn't shift when it's double and this thick. I'm also seam ripping a small hole in the bottom of the pocket and inserting the buckle there, and then top stitching it in place. And the second strap I'm attaching to the bottom pocket's lid. Before attaching it all to the bottom part too. And here, as you can see, I've already stitched up the outer seam. I'm removing some of the width just so it matches up with the upper part, and then I'm finishing off the edge. I'm matching up the seams from the seams on the upper part and pinning it in place, and also distributing the fabric evenly so there's no bubbles anywhere. Then I deattach the zipper and I flip the zipper over so it's, so I can have it edge to edge when I stitch it. to the hemming. So I'm just folding up 1 centimeter and pressing it, and then I'm proceeding to fold up 2 centimeters and pressing it down. And then I top stitch it all the way around using the tape to make sure that I'm the same distance from the edge everywhere. Then I'm attaching a hook and eye for closure, and I also attached some snap buttons for the pockets so they would lay a little bit more flat, but I lost all the footage of that, so I'm sorry, but yeah, that's optional, you don't have to if you don't want to. And then because I made mine pretty long, I decided to add some elastic in the bottom hem so I wouldn't accidentally walk on them and ruin them, because I made them pretty long. I really enjoy the crunchy effect the access fabric has at the bottom of the pants. I'm just using this round elastic and then a pulley thing, and I seam ripped 2 holes in the seam of the hem and inserted it with a safety pin, and then I just secured the seams again. And this is the finished result.
There is no harmony in the universe.
I'm really happy with these pants, and I hope you enjoy this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!